So, Silverstone circuit walk. Starting from the start-finish line, this is the old circuit start-finish line. The Formula One cars start from the other back straight. We will see when we arrive there, but the GT cars all start from this old circuit start-finish line. So, pretty straightforward. Just stay on the left side of the road, accelerate, obviously flat out, and now this is the first right-hander. It's pretty difficult to find exactly a reference point for braking. Obviously, we have those signs and bill markers here, but it's very easy that someone, in the first laps just goes through and demolishes them, and you don't have them anymore. So it's not really easy to find out, because actually you have to brake just between this one and the 50 meters. The better you get, the more closer you go into the 50 meters. But it is very possible that after the first laps, those do not exist anymore, because someone went wide and just destroyed them, and they're not here anymore. Another thing that I have always told you, yes, the start of the braking marks here are a good indicator, but I have always told you, don't look and don't get reference points on those tire marks. Why? Because if it rains, they're not there anymore. If the truck is fast or green, they're not there anymore. If it's night, they're not there anymore. So this is a problem. I am invisible. We can fix that. No worries. I think I am good now. We'll see in a minute. So what to do? This big screen billboard is a good reference point. It's a little bit on the far away side, but it is a decent reference point. So what you can do is that when you going over that very, very big TV screen, you can start braking, okay? And gradually, as you get better and better, and depending also on your car, you can brake later and later, maybe again when you go almost over that. But as usual, when you start approaching the track, always start braking before your reference point and gradually go farther and farther and farther. Again, depends on your car. With the old Bentley, because it is a slower car, I was able to brake really late, almost at 50 meters. With other cars that arrive faster, I have to brake a little bit sooner. It's very, very important to be able to modulate the brake really well while you enter this turn. This turn is very fast, but it also a little bit off camber. So if you don't bring the car, if you stay a little bit wide here, it's very difficult to bring the front end of the car inside the turn again. So the initial turn-in is very important. You really have to modulate the braking really well in a way to not over-rotate the car because you're losing time, but to rotate the car properly so that ideally you want your front wheels to be over the curb over here and start accelerating once you go through these the first red sausage over here. Those sausages and the curb are very smooth, so you can't really abuse it. Don't abuse it way too much, because if you go over the grass here, the car will jump, and it is dangerous, it is risky, and you might end up very, very wide. So, as I was saying, you have to position your car, your wheels over here like that. Just, cut as much as you can. Don't go over the grass. The best pilots do manage with some cars to go a little bit with the front tire over the grass and just, almost having the left front wheel in the air, something like that. So go over there just at the moment where you start accelerating. It's difficult, you have to be quite advanced to do that. You can see already the car jumped up and down, so just stay here as much as you can. The exit of this turn is very important. The speed that you bring inside the turn is very important. Once you are just before that second red sausage here, you have to go on the accelerator, but you have to be sure to have the car rotated and to keep the car rotating in the while accelerating. Because if you don't, if you are just a little bit too wide and not exactly on the apex, the car will wash out and go very, very wide in understeer. And it's very easy, because you're going very fast, to go over this curb and get a penalty, because the speed is high here, and if you go really wide, you get a penalty for track limits. So, as I said, it's important that you end over this curb and you are already rotated with some slight oversteer, power oversteer, so that you keep your car over here and keep accelerating. Why is exit so important? It's important because this straight over here is in a quite uphill. It doesn't look like it because it's very wide and it seems that it's almost flat. But in reality, you can see how the car is already, going uphill. And it's difficult for the cars to accelerate, so it's really very, very important to carry as much speed as you can and get out of this turn with the best possible exit speed. Right, so once you get out from this curb, you have to move your car to the left side of the road. Watch out, because this is the exit from the pits. You can see it here, right? This is where the cars exiting from the pits finish. So yes, you can move and obviously across the line like that, but keep in mind that if someone is over there accelerating, keep an eye. The guys also exiting from the pits should keep an eye on the cars arriving very fast on the fast lap, on the proper lap. It's not very dangerous, but it has caught me out, thinking that there is no one there, but in reality there was a car accelerating pretty much at the same pace, and I was like, oh my God, what happened? Right at the very last moment. So just keep it in mind. So now we are arriving at this very, very fast sequence of turns. It goes right, and left again. It's really, really fast, and you going in flat out and gradually you scrub speed, changing, downshifting gears, but it still stays a very, very fast sequence of turns. As soon as you go over the start of the outside left curb, you have to start pointing towards the apex of this first right-hander, and it is completely flat out. So you just go inside here completely flat out in 5th gear. It's very, very smooth. You can go over that curb to have as much wide track as possible. And then once you go out of here, you have to start going to the left. You need to cut as much as possible, often going over the grass. As usual, once you go over the grass, you have to be very careful for not having the car jumping. And usually, with most of the cars, you have to tap the brakes and downshift one gear. With some cars, you have to just downshift one gear. It depends, but usually what I do is tap the brakes a little bit and downshift one gear down. And you have to do this before going over the curb. So tap the brakes, downshift one gear, release the brakes, because if you go over the curb and possibly on the grass with the front end loaded, it's easy that your splitter will touch somewhere in here in the middle of the curb. Even if it's very smooth, you still see that obviously there is a little bit of a gap here, and obviously the grass is even lower than the curb. So you don't want your front end to be very low. So release the brakes. You have downshifted, you have tapped the brakes, release the brakes, even give some extra accelerator once you go over here like this, and then hard on the accelerator to control the car, because if you keep on braking while you're turning like that and you are jumping over that curb, you might destabilize the car and you might get quite a bit of oversteer. And I remind you that you arrive here in almost on the limiter 4th gear, because you have just downshifted from the 5th, which is still much over 200 kilometers per hour. And that means that, you know, it's very easy to destabilize the car, lose all the downforce, and you don't want this to happen. So once you have went over the curb with in coasting or just slight acceleration, slam on the acceleration again. If you have done everything properly, the car will slide and get wide somewhere here, okay? And once you have really arrived wide here, you have to go a little bit harder on the brakes. Some cars, you can make this right turn in 4th gear. With some cars, you have to downshift in 3rd gear, depends how long the gear ratios are, but you really have to start braking. Now, this is very delicate. This is one of the most delicate turns here. You have to modulate your braking. The speed is high, so it's easy to destabilize the car, but if you don't modulate the brake, you are going to go wide. The speed is really high. If you modulate the brake properly, you will provoke the correct rotation so that you can jump over the curb over here. You just want to go on the grass just before touching the green over there. And you need to keep on modulating your brake pressure here, okay, very, very slightly, so that you can rotate the car, and that will permit you to arrive somewhere around in the middle of the road, possibly a little bit to the left, before the last, practically almost the last, right-hander. At that point, you want to brake a little bit extra and downshift in 3rd gear with most of the cars. And this is the last most difficult turn, let's say, again, because the rotation of the car here is very, very important. So you need again to modulate the braking in order to be able to point the car here, again, in these two sausages. The double sausages show you where the apex of the turn is into those very fast turns. But in particular in this turn, the moment where you can accelerate is a little bit later than the last sausage, or if you have managed to rotate the car very well, the very good drivers can do it, you can accelerate again in the middle of those sausages. Usually, if I accelerate a little bit sooner here, you see there are 3 actually, I find myself understeering a little bit, and I end up way too much wide, and that's a problem because I have to lift. So I usually let the car coast a little bit and rotate it a little bit extra and start accelerating just before the end of the green space of the curb. The better driver can start accelerating even sooner because they have rotated the cars better before that. You don't have enough time because you're still going very fast. I think it's something around 150, 160 kilometers per hour. So whatever you do, you're gonna end up having the car going wide here. Wide, wide, wide. Be very careful. You don't want to arrive in a situation like that you see the straight like this, because this means that you're going to have understeer, and understeer means you're scrubbing speed because your front tires are, scrubbing a lot. You are, eating the tires. It's not good. So you don't want this to happen. So you want to arrive somewhere around here with the car rotated like that, so that you know that, okay, no need to keep on turning anymore. If you arrive flat out, full accelerator, with the steering wheel almost straight here, this means you have done everything correct, and the next turn is practically not a turn anymore. You just need to rotate gently, small steering inputs, and exit this sequence with as high exit speed as possible. Again, the exit speed here is very, very important here, because we have a very, very long straight. Let me show you. As you can see, it is a very long straight. There are possibilities to get the slipstream here, so exit speed is extremely important. Okay? Right, so exit speed, as we said, extremely important. And just slowly go towards the left side of the road. Moving forward, as I said, and to the left as much as possible. Now, again, let me show you. This is another billboard that will easily going to be destroyed in, I don't know, even possibly into the rolling start, you know how online races are. So don't use this as a reference point. But here, fortunately, we don't have a big issue. We have two reference points that are pretty important. The first one is visual, and it is the start of the red tire wall, I think, or wall, whatever it is, this here. So the red wall here, the start of the red wall, is your first reference point. It's a bit too early, but it's a perfect reference point to start, practicing your braking. So start braking over here. Once you get better and better, you can slightly see over here there is a gap, there is a bump on the asphalt. You can even feel it much better in the steering wheel if you are a little bit, turning. Obviously, if you are straight, not. Or even by watching the car, because you can see how the car will go up and down now. Bump like that. So there is a bump over there. You can even feel it much better when you go in speed. You will probably feel the bump. Depending again on the car, on how much practice you have on the circuit, on your setup and everything, you either start braking before the bump or after the bump. This is how to start braking on the red wall, and once you have customized yourself with the track, you can start braking just exactly after the bump on the asphalt. Okay. Now, hard braking, you need to start going towards the turn a little bit earlier than normally. The camber of the turn will help you stay if you go a little bit earlier. If you wait too much, then it's difficult to rotate the car and go into the turn, or you have to scrub so much speed that it's not good. So a little bit earlier, keep on the brakes, modulate again. In this whole circuit, it's very important to trail brake, to modulate the brakes properly, rotate the car slightly, and again, the start of the red tire wall here will help you to understand when it's time to release the brakes, and towards the end of the tire wall, when it's time to start accelerating. So usually what I do is I have to release completely the brakes at the start of the red tire wall, and at the end of the red tire wall I start accelerating again. Once more, the car should rotate a little bit of power oversteer, and you will end up wide sliding over here. It's very easy to make a mistake here and end up very wide. That's not a big issue if you end up very wide here, because as you can see it's still asphalt, and that's good because it saves you. But you have to remember, if you end up so wide here, you have to raise your foot a little bit from the accelerator, unfortunately, because if you keep your foot flat out on the accelerator while you are so wide, you're gonna get a penalty for track limits, all right? So obviously you don't want to arrive over here, you want to be somewhere around here, okay? This is perfect. But if you go wide, again, remember, raise your foot from the accelerator, just even for a tenth of a second, just raise it, telegraph the accelerator. It will be enough for the system to understand that you're not gaining time, and it won't give you a penalty for track limits. If you go flat out, it will give you a penalty for track limits. Okay, back again, and slowly to the right side of the road this time. And here we have another easy reference point for braking. We both have the red guardrail here, the start of the red guardrail, and we also have, even better, the start of the curb, of the outside curb. Start braking before that, and as you get better and better and better, start braking on the start of the curb. Now this braking zone, it might seem to you that the speed is low enough to start braking after the curb, but the road goes downhill and your braking zone becomes longer, and yet the turn-in becomes more difficult. So don't overdo it. Start braking at the start of the curb, and you will see that you will arrive really, really fast at the turn-in. Again, you have to start turning in. You have a very nice reference point here. The end of the curb, of the outside curb, is your reference point to start turning in. The moment you start turning in, raise your foot from your brake. Don't brake 100% again. Start modulating, and even if you feel some understeer and you feel that the car is probably gonna go wide while you are pretty much at the middle of the road, almost release completely the brakes, release completely the pressure on the brake pedal, and you will see that the car will find front-end grip, and it will go towards the apex of the turn. Once again, important here, as you can see, very, very high sausage all the way into the inside of the curb. Don't go over there. You're gonna have problems. Now, there are two possible ways to do this turn. The first one is you instantly accelerate way too much, or you release the brake sooner. You come in very, very fast into the turn, and you will end up very wide. That's not the correct way, but it is a very good way when you are trying to overtake. So when you are trying to overtake on the turn before, and we will discuss about this again, you can stay on the inside, try to overtake, release the brakes much sooner, get into the turn very, very fast, maybe accelerate sooner again, and that will bring your car very wide, okay? Obviously, you're gonna mess up the next turn, but if you manage it with this technique to go to pass your opponent and be in front of your opponent, then it would be easy for him to counterattack for the next turn. He can do it, but it won't be easy. Normally, though, what you really want to do is to not overdo it, not go completely wide. Stay somewhere into the middle, possibly, maybe a little bit on the right-hand side of the road, depends. Why? Because that will permit you to make a much better line, to take a much better line for the right-hander. And the moment that you exit the right-hander, possibly the next turn is flat out, and you have also a straight line. And that means that the better you manage to exit this turn, the faster your lap time, because you get the next turn flat out, you have more speed, and there is a straight line, more speed again, and so on. So, don't overdo it with the exit of the first left-hander. Position the car properly around in the middle of the road so that you can take this turn in a better line. Usually, I find always myself having to telegraph a little bit with the accelerator at the apex of this turn. Sometimes I do it when I'm going over the grass. When I'm just clipping the grass, at that moment I will telegraph a little bit, because otherwise I'm going to end up with either too much oversteer, which will engage the traction control and will slow down the car, or with too much understeer, again depending on the car, and that will make me go wide over here. So usually with front engine cars, I will get oversteer here, and the traction control will engage if I go flat out, and that doesn't do me any favors. With mid-engine cars that have much more traction, I will, raise the front and go understeer if I go flat out, and again, I will have to raise it at the exit, which is not good. So just at the apex, I will be already in the accelerator before, but at the apex I will just telegraph a little bit in order to rotate and regain some grip at the front, or calm down the spin of the rear wheels, and go slowly on the accelerator and try to exit here as fast as possible, as soon as on the accelerator full as possible. Again, into the whole exit and the whole next turn, you will probably really have to work with the steering wheel, because if you want to maintain your accelerator flat out like this, okay, you want to also keep traction on the rear wheels. And if you feel that the rear end, I mean, at some point, especially when you are going inside the next turn at the exit and inside turning like this for the next turn, sometimes, because obviously, again, here you have a very, very high sausage, and you don't want to take that. Sorry, it's going to be a massive waste of time if you take this sausage. So you don't want to take it, you don't even want to clip it. So you either get a little bit of understeer, so you have to push the car inside, or if you do it too much while you're trying to rotate the car, you're gonna start having oversteer. And when you start having oversteer, you don't want to insist, because the traction control will engage and you're losing speed again. So you will fight quite a bit with the steering wheel. Understeer, go in, again, don't do this, but feel the limit with small movements. Go in. Oversteer, control very fast. You don't have to be lazy here. Remember the video about the 3 types of drivers: lazy, active, proactive. So you really have to be proactive here and work a lot with the steering wheel, because you want to have, you don't want to work with the pedals. You want to have the accelerator flat out, full throttle through the whole exit and the next turn. And I assure you that if you do it properly, the car will move around. Okay, the car will be nervous, will try to go into oversteer, will try to go into understeer, and the only way to fix it is working with the steering wheel. Again, small movements, okay, small movements, not this, not that, not small movements, to manage the grip, make the rear tires find traction, make the front tires find lateral grip, manage the grip all around the car, okay. This will give you the possibility to get out of here as fast as possible. So flat out. Again, you will end up a little bit wide over here. That's fine. Don't go very wide as usual, because you are going to get track limits. If unfortunately you end up wide in the race and you cannot save it, as usual, you will have to telegraph a little bit with the accelerator in order to make the system understand that you're not gaining time. If you do this, the system will understand that, okay, you're not gaining time, and it will not give you a warning for track limits. Right. Let's move on. So here we are actually at the start-finish line, the modern start-finish line for the Formula One. This is where the Formula One starts, right? And you can also see the brand new buildings here. This is pretty impressive building. Oops, very, very fast. Yeah. This is a very impressive building, the new Silverstone. It's really, really nice. Yeah, really cool. So this is where the Formula One starts. And I think this is also the podium over here and so on. So, back straight and modern start-finish line for the Formula One here. And we continue, we stay at the left as much as possible. The start of the curb here is the place when we start thinking about our braking reference point. Normally the braking reference point is at the start of the green, when the grass ends and the green painted asphalt starts. But initially it could be a little bit too late, so maybe start braking a little bit sooner than that. This is a very, very particular braking point and turn. It is extremely fast, one of the fastest turns, and really hard to nail it and make it proper. But once you have done that, it becomes muscle memory and you do it almost automatically. But it's initially it's really, really fast. So practically, let's say that you start at the braking at the start of the green asphalt. Okay, you really have to go as wide as possible. Some of the best drivers even go outside here, and so you tap the brakes and downshift one gear. From fifth gear, usually you go down to fourth gear. Some cars also do it in fifth gear too, or they are in sixth gear and you go down to fifth gear. I don't remember. It depends on the car. So you go down usually one gear, or you stay on fifth gear, and you tap the brakes a little bit. You stay a little bit wide, okay, and then you go in. You start turning in, and it's really, really hard. You really have to nail and go coasting almost over this curb into the green asphalt paths over here. And you really have to be over the green paths in a way that after you go into the grass and you jump on the grass, and the cars must be rotated. The car must be rotated like this, okay? Because if you are, if you arrive like that, that's not rotated enough. You're gonna have understeer. You're gonna end very, very wide. So you have to rotate the car. You are flat out over here. You're already on the accelerator, and the car will slide. The speed is really high. We're talking over 200 kilometers per hour. And yeah, the Tortellini is very right here. Be careful to do this once your tires have the proper pressure, because jumping at this high speed over this curb will lose pressure on your tires if the pressure is not optimal. So if your pressure is low, you're going to lose a lot of pressure here. Your tires will move around a lot and will let some pressure, some air go out. So only jump over that curb when your pressures are proper. And as I said, you're going to end up sliding wide over here. Now, depending on how much front end grip your car has, if you have good enough front end grip, you can take the risk and go over the curb like that, and then try the next turn flat out, because you really want to do the next turn flat out and still stay on the road. If your car is mid-engine and you have some understeer, you know, when you are flat out, then you really want to rotate your car better on the turn before and end up somewhere around here. You don't really want to go over the curb, because you want, I mean, even 30 centimeters or half a meter distance from the curb will permit you to get a better line while doing flat out this turn. But if you find yourself and you are like this at the end of the turn, it's not easy. And if you have some high-speed understeer, you're gonna end really, really wide, and you will be forced to raise your foot before finishing the turn. So even if that turn seems easy, the faster you get and you make the turn before this one, the more problems you're gonna have taking this turn flat out. So it's very important to position your car and rotate your car properly when you are making the last turn, the previous turn fast enough, so that you can do this flat out. Otherwise, you won't be able to do it. You will arrive in understeer somewhere around here, and you will be forced, to raise your foot, which is terrible, terrible. And why it is terrible? It's terrible because you really want to arrive at the braking reference point for this hairpin flat out maximum speed, because this is one of the best overtaking places of the circuit. And you can even defend, and the opponent can go outside and still overtake you by switching lines at the exit of the hairpin. Many things can happen here. It's one of the most exciting turns, even if it's a hairpin. It's one of the most exciting braking zones and great overtaking opportunity. So ideally, what you want to do here is you're going to end up wide, and you want to arrive at the braking reference point, which is again the start of the left curb here. The better you get, the later you can start braking. So maybe you can go even a little bit after the start of the curb here. Depending on your car, you might end up and be able to go really on the left side. With other cars, you might not be able to do that, and you will arrive somewhere in the middle. Brake into a straight line and go to the outside left before going into the hairpin while braking into a straight line. What I mean is that you want to do this and then go in, okay? You don't want to do this straight line and go in, because obviously you're going to lose a lot of space and track width, and you're going to. It's a hairpin 180 degrees, but it's a wide hairpin. So you want to use as much track width as possible in order to be able to be very fast into this hairpin. So brake in a straight line, and you're gonna end up here, okay? You can see this white line. Once you go through this white line, this is the moment when you have to release the brakes and go in. Okay, now as we said, this is a hairpin, it's 180 degrees, but it is very wide. So if you have done everything correctly, you can release the brake totally much sooner, and you will see that you will be able to bring a lot of speed into the turn. Much more than, if you keep braking because you're afraid you won't be able to make the turn. Release the brakes. You will see that the car will go in, and don't use too much steer here because you will understeer. Use just the correct steering angle and go inside the turn. It's wider than it seems. And when you arrive somewhere around here on the apex, you can go hard on the accelerator, rotate the car, and exit. Now, this turn, maybe we can discuss about it again. As I said, it's a great overtaking opportunity. You can go on the inside, you can stay on the outside, you can cross the lines with the opponent, you can do many different lines, and you can be very creative trying to overtake. Maybe we can conclude our circuit walk, and then go get back here again and show you the various lines that we can try for this turn. All right. So, as I said, hard on the accelerator. Okay. Now, again, you will end up, of course, a little bit wide here. You have two possibilities. Ideally, you want to go a little bit out towards the middle of the road and then turn in, okay, for this next hairpin, which is much narrower than the one before. This is harder to do. It needs possibly first gear, depending on the car. So pretty much all the cars do it in first gear, so it's harder to do. Or if you are under attack, you can remain inside here, protecting your inside line, and go in again. But obviously you will need to brake sooner. Now the problem is that when you start going over here, you don't know where to brake. Okay, you start not having. You will see that if I go a little bit farther ahead, I can't even see the hairpin. That is the case with most of the cars. The front A pillar, side pillar here, will completely hide the turn, and you won't see where you're going. So it's very important that you, depending on the car, you get your reference points. Okay, so hopefully I won't get disqualified now. So usually I try to watch when the left-hand curb disappears behind the A pillar, the front A pillar here. And when it disappears, I wait just a little bit. Don't wait until the whole green asphalt ends, because if you do that, you're going to end up wide and long. So just a little bit after the end of the curb, start braking hard, downshift into the first gear, and then when you see almost disappearing, this is the moment where you really want to start turning in. Now once again, don't go the accelerator too fast if you're not sure. It's very easy to start accelerating here, but you're not on the apex yet. You have to wait just a little bit, a hint, and then go to the accelerator, because if you do it beforehand, you're really gonna end up really wide. It's impossible to make this turn. It's really narrow, completely almost 180 degrees. Let me show you from above, if possible. Yes. You see, again, look at that. And as you can see, it is wider at the entry, and it gets narrower at the exit. So it's a big problem. Okay. Right. Acceleration, first gear. When we accelerate in first gear, we try to, get our steering wheel as straight as possible, as soon as possible, because in first gear it's very easy to spin the tires. Okay, while turning, and spinning the tires means the traction control activates and influence a lot our our acceleration, and we don't want that. So the sooner you can rotate back the steering wheel, even with a little bit of power oversteer, the better it is, because that will mean that the rear tires get traction, and the car accelerates forward instead of waiting for the traction control to do its stuff. So it's very important to have the correct rotation and get back to the straight line as soon as possible. Flat out, first gear, second gear, third gear, it is very fast. Make sure that you get the correct line again. Here, with some cars, it's easy to have some understeer and go wide. If you make the correct line, and as usual, if you don't oversteer, if you don't use the steer way too much, but you just, practically you want to be somewhere around here. You want to be with your left side tires over the green, not too much, because you will jump, but you want to be on the green asphalt. And once you are here properly, then do not keep on steering way too much. Find the correct steering angle. Give your front tires the perfect lateral grip. Don't overdo it, because if you overdo it, the front tires will start to scrub, the surface temperatures will go much higher, and you're gonna start sliding into understeer outside the track. Right. Exit. This is very slippery here. You will, of course, end up into the green asphalt. It's very slippery. Watch out, especially when it rains. It's really very, very easy. Actually, in the whole Silverstone track, the green asphalt and the curbs are so slippery. Watch out when you're accelerating over them and it's drizzle or it rains. It's really slippery. You can end up in no time in a spin. All right. So, hard acceleration, and now is one of the most strange braking reference points. Many sim racers do not know exactly where to start braking for this turn, but it's even harder on how to trail brake and modulate for those this double turn, let's say. So let's try to explain what you have to do. Now, here it is. Start of the red guardrail. This is our reference point. So once you arrive here, okay, let's show you again. This is it. This is it over here. Once you arrive and you get past through this red guardrail, this is the moment to start braking as hard as possible. Okay, the better you get, you will start your braking even a little bit after. Don't overdo it. You won't be able to make the next turn. Okay, so starting of the braking reference point, the start of the red colored guardrail. So you go over here, and once you're over it, start braking as hard as possible. Now, what to do? The initial braking has to be very hard. You have a lot of speed. Before arriving at this billboard that it will disappear, but at least, at first, in order to understand what to do, you have to start turning in. Don't overdo it, but you have to start turning in. Keep on braking full, okay, 100% braking. Keep an eye, if possible, because it's not easy. Your eyes should be here, but just keep an eye on the end of the red guardrail, okay. By the end of the red guardrail, you really have to go over and pointing over that curb. And while you are arriving at that curb, okay, this is the moment that you really want to start modulating the pressure. The more understeer you have, the more you have to release the braking. I know that when you're having understeer, you feel like, oh my God, I have to brake more and scrap velocity and slow down because I'm going wide. No. Release the brakes, release the brakes. If you have done properly the braking before, 100% braking at the correct reference point, then this is the moment that when you feel understeer, release the brakes, release the brakes, release the brakes, go over the curb here where you see that white line arrives and the grass disappearing, the grass ends. This is when you have to go over, and then keep on turning, release the brakes even more, and just you want practically your left tire to go over the green asphalt. When you are arriving over here and you still feel some understeer, completely release the brakes, go into full coasting, don't touch the pedals, and drive the car over here. Don't touch the grass, but you really want to go close to the grass as possible, okay? So stay on the grass or stay on the green asphalt like this, and after you go over and the curb finishes and you see the grass here, go on the accelerator. Rotate the car on the accelerator, flat out. You're gonna end up somewhere around here, okay? Now, you see that 90 degrees corner, almost 90 degrees corner that makes the green asphalt with the grass. This is where you want to start braking hard for the next turn. So full acceleration until now, and now that you go pass through and the grass starts, you're going to go hard on the brakes. Ideally, you want to go a little bit over the curb. Modulate, you're gonna end up a little bit wide, not too much, don't overdo it, because if you really overdo it, then you're gonna have issues to get back in. Stay close to the curb, but do leave some space. Look at this. You see? It's almost a car wide, possibly even less. Okay, possibly even less. And as you can see, we have those big green and red rectangles over here. So what you want to do is start getting inside again after the first rectangle, go into a second late apex on the second rectangle, and just before the third rectangle here, start accelerating again. So, or over the third rectangle, start accelerating again. You need to accelerate smoothly, gradually, and start rotating the car once more, and give the car the possibility to find the traction over the curb at the exit, as much traction as you have, because we are now going again to the start-finish straight line. You can gain some centimeters, okay, by arriving into this bend that you're going to do easily flat out, but instead of staying here, you can go a little bit inside like this, placing the curb right in the middle of the car. You know, your right tires are on the asphalt. Don't overdo it, you're gonna get a track limits error, and that will permit you to keep the steering angle as little as possible, which will help the car accelerate even more. The less steering angle you have, I remind you, the less you scrub speed from acceleration, and that helps you. And you also do a tiny bit less road instead of, you know, staying outside of the curb. And here it is, one full lap of the Silverstone circuit. So that was our circuit walk. I hope you guys enjoyed it. I hope that you find some interesting aspect of this circuit. This circuit is extremely technical, very difficult circuit, difficult to master, difficult to go fast, difficult to stay consistent on the circuit. Lots of very fast turns, high downforce, high speed. So it's really hard. And it's long, so yeah.